we hear all the time now is that councils are desperate for money.
Yeah.
They're absolutely rammed up with debt. Some of them are going bankrupt. They're running to bankruptcy court, mostly because of very, very poor administration of their funds, not because they've been, had their funds removed from them. But this is about something different. This is about them spending money on things that they don't want us to spend money on.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is pretty astounding, actually. Southwark Council, which is one of the worst and one of the councils highlighted in the report in the Times, is one of the absolute highest users of gas and electricity and one of the biggest spenders on gas and electricity. This is the same council that between 2019 and 2022 hit drivers with almost £11 million worth of low traffic neighbourhood fines, essentially for the crime of driving down a residential street, a street that you
probably streets that the people lived on.
And driving up and down, you would have been driving up and down for years and years and years completely normally, and suddenly you're facing a £100 bill for this. So this very, very same council that has been imposing these very, very damaging policies on drivers is actually one of the worst when it comes to their own environmental record.
And of course, they would say that they're doing all of these things in order to get to net zero, right? Because presumably they've got net zero policy just in Southwark Council, so that they have everything going towards getting net zero.
As long as Southwark sorts it out, the world will be saved. It's just nonsense. And I think you look at they produced a report on this that went to 73 pages. People just want their bins to be collected. People just want their libraries to be open, their schools to be run. They don't want these 73-page tomes, these sort of, Tolstoy-esque documents on, how to save the world from essentially local council officers. It's just nonsense.
And how many wheelie bins can they supply you with, particularly for people that live on ordinary streets where they haven't really got anywhere to put them. So you've just got all these bins blown around all over the place. They've also done another thing, anti-car, and I'm going to be talking about Westminster Council a little bit later on, actually, about this. They've started charging people for parking on a street which, up until relatively recently, was free to park on. And suddenly you wake up one morning and there's a whole load of sort of parking bays that been put in. And if you don't pay to park there with a residential permit, you get a ticket.
We have all these schemes, all these things like ULEZ, vehicle excise duty, fuel duty, that are designed to force people off the roads, designed to force people out of motor vehicles and into electric vehicles. And then suddenly you realise you don't have any money because all of those motor vehicles that were bringing in tax revenues, suddenly people are moving away from them, and suddenly you need to start hitting the electric vehicles. So I think taxpayers, drivers, they cannot win here.
But
wherever you go, the taxman's going to be reaching into their pocket.
And how is it possible that Southwark Council is spending so much and Oxfordshire Council is spending so much on their sort of heat and gas and electricity when so many of them are working from home? Because that's the other thing we hear, is that an awful lot of the offices of local councils are sort of barren and empty because nobody bothers going in.
Yeah, a shocking number are empty. We've produced figures showing that many are only 10, 20% full. In terms of Southwark Council, I'd imagine they would say they have a lot of potentially old Victorian buildings that need to be heated. But that's precisely the point.
But only if there's people in
there. But people use the energy that they need to use, and yet Southwark Council are telling their own residents to stop using the energy that they need to use. So that's where you come back to the hypocrisy point. It's outrageous.
It really is. We've got one statement. We've got a few statements, actually. We're going to read one. This was Oxfordshire County Council, what they had to say for themselves about this story. I'm afraid we are not inclined to do this because, quite frankly, this information and the report written on the back of it are both fatally flawed, they say. They are quite simply wrong and seek to compare apples and pears. Now, that doesn't sound to me like a council that's denying the story. It just says you can't really compare one thing against another.
No, it sounds like a communications officer that knows they're never going to lose their job, but they're happy just to insult residents and insult taxpayers and insult the media. I think it's very much indicative of...
Because they don't think they have to answer to anybody, do they?
Absolutely. They know they can just raise council tax to the maximum every year.
And
whichever party is in power is going to do it.
And we're told they're going to get permission to do so, aren't they, again? So having only just recently added up loads and loads of people's council tax and just, added another sort of 10%, which is what more or less happened in London, they're going to be able to put another 5% on in the coming year.
It's an inflation-busting increase. And there was a particularly worrying report that actually DLUC officials in Michael Gove's department, the housing department, have actually told councils they expect this increase in council tax, which would be outrageous if it was true. Councils should be allowed to compete with one another to see if they can actually offer better bills than their neighbours. That's how you have councils like Harlow and Central Bedfordshire, which did, to their credit, freeze council tax last year. And
when you look at some of the things that the spending is going on, nearly £1 million on internet bills for working from home staff, Islington Council spending £130,000 on tea bags and biscuits, Wales Council spending £25,000 per individual on high-tech bins that tell you when they're full.
Yeah, and the cherry on top of the cake, £350,000 spent attending award ceremonies to celebrate their own, well, what they claim to be success, which we uncovered last year.
It's amazing. Absolutely astonishing. Elliot, great to see you. Thank you very much.